Hello, everybody. Welcome to Torah Life Ministries. I talk all about biblical health, and I personally have chosen not to consume any animals. I don't want any flesh of an animal in my body. And some of you agree, and some of you disagree with that. Well, today
Yeah,
on the show, I have a family, a vegetarian family, a vegan family that has been
yep,
doing it successfully for a good amount of time. And we're going to be talking with them today about where does the Bible justify being a vegan, or does it even justify being a vegan? We're going to talk
right,
about them. So here they go. Guys, introduce yourself to the audience.
yep,
We are Aaron and Dusty Stanzik of eatmoverest.com. And as you said, we are a family, vegan family of five now. We've got little Miss Zoe with us.
yep.
We've been doing this thing
Our third,
we've been doing this thing for about a decade now.
yep. And we are Christians. We're Catholic, technically Catholic, even though we've struggled with some of our Catholic roots and rules, like so many of our fellow Catholics do. But we're devout Christians and have come across this question a lot. What from our YouTube channel. We get a lot of our retreats. We've been doing retreats in Costa Rica for years, and many people that show up have that similar belief. We find that there's a lot of Christian vegans that follow us. So it's been really fun. It's been really interesting. We've had a lot of conversations like this one. So
Wonderful. Well, everybody, so we're going to ask this question now, and we're going to talk about this. So here we
yeah,
go. You both identify as Christians, correct?
yeah,
Okay.
yep,
So
yeah.
what would you do if a pastor came up to you or texted you or emailed you on one of your videos and says, in the Bible they ate meat, we shouldn't
Right.
be vegans? What would be your reply?
You know, I Christspiracy. Are you familiar, Paul, with the movie Christspiracy
I am.
coming
I
out?
have not yet seen it, but I'm familiar with it.
It's so good. It's so good. We did get to watch it a couple months ago, and I would say go watch that to him first. I don't know if it's out yet, but I would also say there are a lot of things that were different. 2,000 years ago. There were no cell phones. There wasn't the information, the education. Also, things were done differently. You had a cow or a goat, and you weren't getting cow's milk that was had antibiotics and all of these
Factory
nasty
farming
things.
didn't exist.
Factory farming wasn't. That being said, they were mass slaughtering animals, in the temple and doing these things. And so, gosh, I when people do ask, because people do ask me that on Instagram, it's never been a pastor. I simply say, what I'm doing what I actually think Jesus would do now. when Jesus If Jesus was here walking around, he certainly wouldn't condone what's going on with factory farming. He would not condone, the healthcare system. He wouldn't condone, the corruption with pharmaceuticals and vaccines and all of the whole healthcare system. He wouldn't condone that. But I know he for sure would support the way we are living and the way I'm eating. And so would he eat fish like he, supposedly did in the Bible? He may, and that's fine. I'm not saying that eating fish is necessarily wrong or evil, but we decided that it wasn't necessary for us, and so that's why we're doing it, you
I
know?
think I
So
always
go
slide it
ahead.
down to if you don't need it, why eat it kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah,
Sure. Well, but when you said he wouldn't be doing this, he wouldn't be doing that, but then you said like, well, at the time they had their own goats. They weren't doing the factory farming. So
right.
would he condone that and see nothing wrong with that? And if that's your stance of why you're doing it is because you're doing what you think he would be doing, but if he would do that, why don't you do that?
Yeah. I'm not a vegan because I think Jesus would be, but I just think being that let me say this too. I still don't think that if we had to eat animals, let's say something showed up and said, okay, well, a doctor or someone was like, you would really benefit from cow's milk or goat's milk or eggs or any of those things. The way I would do it would be more aligned with how it was done 2,000 years ago, I guess is maybe my thought process there. And I think Jesus would think that way too, right? To say, okay, they either actually need or think they need eggs or milk. Do it this way. Go buy yourself a chicken and eat those eggs. Go buy yourself a goat and milk them and do it that way. But don't do it this way, the way it's being done.
Okay, so there is a movement out now where people are homesteading and they are doing
Right,
that. They're eating their own
right,
animals, they're raising it for the milk and so on. So
right.
if somebody would tell you what they're doing is more biblical than what you're doing
Yeah,
from a just a standpoint of from biblical text,
right.
you say,
I would simply say, look, I don't consume animal products simply for my health. I'm not gonna make it a religious thing because the Bible doesn't say for or against. It doesn't. And I would also say that New Testament, the curtain was torn, right? A lot of the laws, right, of the New Testament, Jesus abolished. I mean, it says Jesus came not to abolish the law, but to uphold the law. But he also did make him accessible. And so I think he freed us from a lot of those laws. So to say you're more of a Christian because you're doing, what they did in the Bible, and I'm less of a Christian because I'm a vegan, I would say, well, I'm doing less harm. The Bible also says, do not murder, thou shalt not kill, right? And they're doing that. So it's basically at that point, it's just an argument, right? So I would say for myself, the issues of health, personal health, cholesterol, acid reflux, these things show up more when I'm consuming animals. Am I right? Are you right? We could argue till we're blue in the face, but I think at this point, with the way that most people are consuming animal products, it's a lot better this way, at least
okay.
for me.
So there's a couple of things you said about the Jesus, Yeshua, and the
Yeah,
law being done away with. Uh,
yeah,
yes, I understand the sacrifices in the temple and the sacrificial system of Jesus replacing that. I get that. But
yeah,
but the food, I'm talking about the food from a health standpoint because people talk to me about this all the time. So we know factory farming is bad and we know the food that comes from it is terrible.
right.
But to say that you're a vegan because uh, you feel that's the healthiest food out there, those
Yeah.
people that are homesteading and eating their own eggs from their hens and doing that, are you? We know it's not as bad as factory farming, but do you think it's not healthy what they're doing?
100%. And,
I
for fear of offending them or anything, 100%, it's not as good for you as a whole food plant-based diet.
cholesterol is cholesterol
Yeah,
for one,
yeah,
dietary cholesterol. And I know that not everybody gets high cholesterol from eating eggs and that you can have high cholesterol if you don't eat eggs.
right.
But, then there's the cow's milk. They aren't baby cows. It makes no sense to me from a
Right,
logic standpoint.
exactly.
And,
I'll say this too, speaking specifically about cow's milk and acid reflux. Aaron and I do what we do because we went deep in trying to heal ourselves. I paid $500 to talk to do telehealth calls with physicians and all these things and research. Cow's milk, probably other animal milks too, maybe even human milk. I don't know. But cow's milk for an adult or any human is highly acidic. People say drink cow's milk to the calcium in the cow's milk will soothe your acid reflux. Well, doctors and researchers actually find that when you consume cow's milk, it's highly acidic. It's more acidic, than there is calcium in it to balance it out. So when you are consuming acidic foods like cow's milk, like any animal products that are highly acidic, what is happening is your body pulls calcium from the bones to bring up the pH, right? To combat that acidity. And so it dawned on me that when my doctor said drink a glass of whole milk to cool my reflux, I was actually aggravating it. And in doing so, I was starting the process of osteoporosis because I was leaching calcium from my bones because that's what my body's defense mechanism against the highly acidic milk. So I don't care if you are raising your own cows or it's factory farmed, you bought it from the grocery store. It's highly acidic. Besides the simple fact that you're not a baby cow, right? People want to talk about soy and hormones in soy. Well, how about the hormones in a substance that's meant to raise a baby cow from infancy to 2,000 pounds in however long that takes? I don't know,
And
a
I
year or
don't
two?
know, this is a side note. I could not fathom having a pet cow and taking care of it every day, and
Right,
then at some point the thought of slaughtering it.
right,
I wouldn't even know how to, let alone have the emotional capacity to do so.
right. The question that started the whole Christspiracy movie was a Christ follower who was a vegan raised his hand to Kip Anderson, who created the movie. He said, "How would Christ kill an animal?"
He asked him at one of his talks before the movie was
Right.
made. So then they teamed up and made the movie
And that's a
documentary.
killer awesome question, because you can be the best Christ following homesteading couple. But that is a good question. You know, WWJD, the bracelets, what would Jesus do? How would Jesus kill that cow? Would he slit its throat? Would he shoot it with the thing in the head? Would he shoot it from his back porch? How would he do that? Would he do that? Maybe he would. You know, it's tough to say. Certainly don't want to speak for Christ, but it's an interesting question. And so I choose, for the health reasons I just mentioned, and for the do no harm, the thou shalt not murder, that side of things, to continue eating this way. We live in Florida. People catch fish, beautiful fish. I'm sure it's delicious fish.
You know,
I'm sure it's healthy fish. We could eat that,
I even
right? And be perfectly healthy. But I still can't get myself there, because why should I consume a piece of death? Why should I consume something that was alive that's now dead? It doesn't seem necessary. And for my kids even, you know, and I worry most about them. And even if I am to become deficient in something, I will still survive and be okay. I would rather be slightly deficient in something and abstain from that, because that abstinence is a spiritual line that goes through every
I was just
form of
gonna say,
religion.
I went through my yogi phase, and my yoga instructor had ahimsa tattooed on her lower back, and I researched it. But she would go out and eat fast food, and
Right,
ahimsa means do no harm. So I didn't see the connection there, and
right.
it just seemed like I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
No, it's
Things
so
like that
so
tricky.
the
shoot
Bi
up.
so it says, you know, in the scriptures in Genesis 9:3 that God allowed man to eat meat. And then
Right,
all throughout the scriptures, man was eating meat, but they weren't just regular men. You showed Abraham giving meat to the angels. You showed
right,
over and over again examples in the scriptures where
right,
God's holy prophets were eating meat.
right.
So what and the meat had to have been slaughtered somewhere or somehow.
Sure.
And even at the feast times in scripture, there was given meat. The only provision was if you're going to eat meat, don't eat the pork and don't eat, you know, and to take care of your animals. And the only way to kill it is really according to the Jewish culture or belief system is to slit its throat because the animal dies and doesn't feel any pain. But there's
Right.
all these examples of people consuming meat in the scriptures, and in Genesis 9:3 saying meat was okay to eat. So
Yeah.
say to somebody that says that.
Mine is go to Daniel. Go to I can't remember if it's the first chapter of Daniel. The scriptures are God breathed. Everything in there is in there for a reason, right? And we read it and we read it and we read it over and over. And Aaron and I have read through the whole Bible in our 20s, and we didn't remember a thing. And it's like, oh, why do I have to go back? And just the other day, I was reading my daily devotional because I'm terrible at sitting down and reading the Bible. So I got one that just has, on this day, it says December 11th, whatever this day is. You get Old Testament, New Testament, Psalms, Proverbs, and I love that. So I get a little taste of each every single day. And this one was Daniel, and I've read it before, but I had kind of forgotten. And this is an interesting detail. The vineyard workers asked their master, "Sir, feed us only vegetables. Don't give us any choice meat. Don't give us any choice wine. Feed us only vegetables for a certain amount of time." And the master said, "No, I need you to be strong. I need you to be healthy. I can't have you looking downtrodden." I can't remember what exactly, what it says. he assumed that in not feeding them choice wine and choice meat, that they would look bad. But he agreed. They said, please, please let us do it. But he agreed to do it. So they ate only vegetables, it says, for a certain amount of time. And they looked, their faces shined like something. It basically says, these vegetarian / vegans, we're going to call them, were thriving. And so he switched all of his workers' diets to that one. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. That's worth noting and for me, taking a break and saying, okay, like that. Why
Well,
did God include that? Why
here's
did
the
he?
thing. Here's the thing. Daniel wasn't a vegetarian, and he wasn't
Okay,
a vegan.
okay,
So he wasn't. He was taken
yeah,
captive into Babylon, and they were feeding the unclean, which were against the Jewish law. So for
yeah,
that reason, which is a wonderful reason, he didn't want to break the law. So he
yeah,
said, "I don't want to eat the meat." But the fact that he even had to say it
yeah,
meant when he was home under his own house, there's a good
right,
chance he did what everyone else did. But he went
sure,
against it because he didn't want to eat the unclean meat.
sure,
So, do you see, I'm a vegan, a vegetarian, and from a biblical standpoint, I have the answer to why I believe it's the ideal diet. But the
yeah,
question you get is, if meat is all over the scriptures, you know, how could you justify being a vegan, or is it biblical
right,
in any way to be a vegan?
right,
And so this is what I'm trying to get at and see. But when we use examples like that, which I used to use, and I had to dig deep into this topic,
yeah,
how do you address this? Because I mean, you can't use, I mean, you could use the Essene Gospels, you could use
right,
the Dead Sea Scrolls to justify veganism, but
right.
to justify a vegan diet with the Bible is quite challenging.
It's very
I
challenging, and in
almost feel
fact,
like
yeah, go ahead.
I'm not as worried about proving that eating meat and slaughtering animals is super, super wrong for every single person. I'm just like, what's wrong with being vegan? I don't see that there's anything wrong with it. And
Right,
I feel like there's so much right with it.
right,
And like I just always go back to the simple, if you don't need it, why eat it?
yeah,
And that's as far as I've ever gone, because I feel like with so many things like this, you can find passages in the Bible to suit your needs, to fit your narrative,
yeah. No matter what side
to
you're on,
like, okay, I found this, I'm happy now. Like this
yeah,
fits what I want to do with my life. And it's
right,
so easy to do that, to just find a way to justify what you want
yeah.
to be your truth in the Bible. So instead of getting lost in the weeds on so many things, I'm like, I feel so in alignment
Yeah,
this way, and maybe not everybody does,
right.
but
Yeah.
I think too that it's important to note the Bible doesn't justify veganism. And I've never sought, I've never wanted it to or needed it to. But it also doesn't condone it. It also doesn't command that you must eat meat, right? So maybe Jesus is indifferent on that. Maybe it's almost like saying, well, the Bible doesn't justify
I think
or
it's
command the use of cell phones or internet,
the
right?
the
And it's like,
question is, where is your heart
yeah,
and what is your idol? Are you making this? Are you putting veganism on the pedestal where God should be alone by himself? I think that's what's most important. And we can do that
yeah,
with so many things. Most people now are doing it with themselves. We're
right,
putting ourselves on a pedestal through social media and yoga instructors telling us that, like, I have the power, you have the power within yourself. And
right,
so as long as you're not putting it on a pedestal,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
Sure. So Uh, this
sweetie.
is something that vegans struggle with, that are Christians that would struggle with. I mean, it's a great answer. You don't want to worship the food, you want to worship the creator who created the food. Great
right,
answer. But the answer that I give people, and for everyone that's watching right now thinking, that I'm right, we don't need to be vegans or something like that. The answer is that I give people is in Genesis 1:29. The original diet for man was a vegan diet of fruits
yeah,
and the herbs with the medicine. That was the
yep,
way he designed our body to consume the food, and that was the
yep,
food that he created.
right,
Now, the reason why he said you could eat meat was not a reward for their good behavior. It was a curse.
yeah,
It was a result of a disobedience, and he
yeah,
created a flood completely destroying this amazing paradise that he brought them to with this great food that was for them. So
Right.
now they got kicked out of that place, and now
Yeah.
they're somewhere where there's no food at all. So for
Yeah.
that particular time, he said, now you can eat the
Right.
animals, just don't do it under these circumstances. Don't eat the pork, only eat the clean animals and consume
Right.
them this way and take care of the animals. But then all the
Right.
fruit came back, but man kept
Right.
eating that. So he had
Right.
a plan A and a plan B.
I
And
love that.
plan A is always better than plan B.
Right.
I
Yeah.
tell people sometime, I say, when somebody brings that up to me, I say, do you believe in polygamy? And they say, no, absolutely not. I said, well,
Yeah.
God didn't condone it. Why don't you? And they said, we just feel it's wrong. So,
Right.
but okay, but according to the scriptures, Adam and Eve, one man, one wife, that was plan A. So
Right.
plan
Right.
B
Right.
was acceptable, but it wasn't ideal.
Right.
But same thing with
Yeah.
diet.
Abraham and Ishmael, right? Yeah. He
Yeah,
had
the same thing with
more.
diet. It's a non-vegan diet is acceptable, but it's not
Right.
ideal according to our Creator's own word in Genesis 1:29.
I love that. And so I like that too that you mentioned, the way we're created. You look at biology, this is one of my favorite arguments for veganism. When you look at biology and how we are created, and let me just mention this too, side note, speaking of creation, we were watching a YouTube with the kids about what was it?
Photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis. And it said the plants create their own food from the sun. They only need sun, water, and then it mentioned minerals. And then it showed an image of the roots going through the soil that has the minerals and the water. And I'm like, look at how amazing this incredible design. And then a tree drops a seed or a bird, even better, a bird eats a seed, can't digest it, poops the seed out. So it's got fertilizer. It lands in the soil, it waters it. It's like, anyway, his amazing design, right? Once you stop and see it, is incredible. So I look at my body as God's design, and I started comparing things. My digestive tract is what, 18 or 19 or 20 some odd feet long. A dog or a true carnivore like a cat is mouth to butt, right? It goes right through them. But we need fiber to move things through our big winding digestive tracts. Okay, that's interesting. Bookmark that. Let's look at our
Or
teeth.
dentition, yeah.
Yeah, let's look at our teeth. Okay. Well, my teeth look more like, I don't know, a horse's teeth than they do again, a cat's teeth or a lion's teeth. I don't have these. People say, well, these are canines. Well, they're called canines, but they're not canines, right? They're not sharp. And someone says, well, sure they are. They're sharp. You could, okay. Um, what is the book, the 80-10-10 book? Why am I blanking on his
By
name?
Doug Graham.
Doug Graham. I love 80-10-10 by Doug Graham. He talks about this. He said, okay, so he makes all these arguments, which is where I got him. I should give him credit. Uh, Take a child and put a child in a pack and play, a playpen right here, like we've got, with a rabbit and an orange or an apple or any fruit for that matter, but a rabbit and any piece of fruit. Which one are they going to go for?
Which one are they going to play with? Which one are they going to eat?
Right. Okay, let's do that with a human, or not a human, an adult, right? Which one are you going to go? And sure, people say, okay, well, I could still eat it. I could kill it. I could rip it apart. I could do all these things. You've got a gag reflex. You've got the fact that you don't have claws to catch it. First of all, how are you going to catch it? You don't have claws to grab it. And then another thing that he mentions too is that so many animals are colorblind, but God gave us color vision. And how much of our food is colorful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Animals, these carnivorous animals eat meat, right? They need the flesh. But we notice things like Adam and Eve in the garden see a bright red shiny apple on a tree, right? Animals can't even see it. They can't even see it because they're color blind. But we can. God gave us the gift of color sight, so we notice the bright orange, the bright apple, the yellow banana, the cucumber, like whatever it is. And like how many vegetables are gray or brown, a potato, but still, like how amazing to for that creation It's like mind blowing to me.
I
And
I
so
I he I've heard it. I've heard them, and I'm in agreement with the design of the body, but I can't as you have children, maybe you
yeah,
agree or disagree, but I can't I no longer can use that excuse or that reason about the kid picking the apple over the meat because as somebody who has little children as well, if I leave not that I would ever have it, but if I left,
yeah,
like, McDonald's french fries on the floor and an apple on the floor, the kid
oh
would
yeah,
probably throw the apple across the room and watch it roll, and he would
100%,
definitely eat the fries because they wouldn't even be able to eat
100%.
the apple. They would eat the fries. An
Oh yeah,
animal, I
Yeah.
mean, an animal, is another. I mean, they're not really vegetarian, but people say,
yeah,
"Oh, the only reason animals eat what they eat is because humans feed it to them." It's like if you were in nature, you would want
right,
to think that an animal would even eat, even a carnivore animal would eat another animal. But if you put the junk food, pet food down, they probably eat that. So that
right,
excuse is a weaker
right,
one. But I hear what you're saying. The design of the body
yeah,
and the way our Creator created these things for us.
yeah,
This is what tempted Eve. She saw this nice shiny apple. He wasn't gonna tempt her with like a drumstick or something. They saw a nice
right,
apple and or
right,
whatever fruit it was, and that's how he tempted her to eat,
right,
the forbidden fruit or something that shouldn't be. It was the only fruit, one fruit of all the amazing trees in the garden. He just says,
right,
"Don't eat this one, but enjoy the rest."
right,
He didn't say that about the animal. He didn't say
right,
anything about the animals until they got kicked out of this beautiful place with all this food. And they're like, "We
yeah.
got nothing else. You've destroyed everything we're known to eat." He
He
said,
even cursed
"Okay,
the ground, right? He said, I cursed the ground, so
yeah."
you'll be on your knees sweating and toiling, right, to try to get stuff to grow. And that was part of the curse. So yeah, that's a good argument. I love that. I love that.
Right. All right.
Cool.
So thank you for being on here. And I'm excited about your book that has a lot of information to help families and just help people in general switch over to a vegan diet if they choose to do so.
Yep.
And where can people get a copy of your book?
Yep. Go to our website, eatmoverest.com/book. You can find all the vendors. It's sold all over the world on many vendors' sites. I'd say go there first and pick basically where you want to buy it. Otherwise, go to Amazon and simply search the Happy, Healthy, Plant-Based Diet on Amazon.
Cookbook.
Or sorry, cookbook on Amazon, and you can find it there.
Well, thank you so much. And I want to say, after being involved in the health community and around veganism and just all of this, it is so flooded with new ages. It's a breath of fresh air to see fellow Christians
Yep.
promoting health. Uh, so,
Yeah.
so that's wonderful. And everybody, if you're interested in health, you want to go to brothers and sisters in Christ and here as a Christian couple who's doing this, not the new ages, the typical new ages. They got great health advice, don't get me wrong, but
Right.
spiritually they need help. So we need to keep them lifted up in prayer. And
Yeah. Thank
here
you.
is a great opportunity. I'm going to put the link to the books below, to the book below, and check out their YouTube channel as well. Thank you guys for joining us and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thanks a bunch.
If you'd like some more videos about Bible topics, please subscribe to this page and check out the other videos I've posted. We also do live prayer every morning, and we have live fellowship every Friday evening. Thank you.